Okay. In the name of the Father, and the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Nice to see all of you again and to have the chance to speak about this important topic on relationships. Hopefully, we'll have a chance to speak together. So I'll say a thought or an idea, and then hopefully I can hear your thoughts and ideas on what I'm saying, or if you want to add. Basically, I wanted to speak about how one chooses their life partner. How do you choose your life partner? Are there criterias? Do you have a set of criteria? And maybe you do. Maybe you've put something together that you can share, a nice structure of, okay, well, these are the things that I definitely don't want to see in my life partner, and these would be called red flags. Don't want them there. And those are musts, and those are good to have. You know, it'd be a bonus, if he's working or she's working and I'm not, something like that. But again, we want to speak of the essentials. So one of the greatest things in life is to love and be loved. And that's why at a certain point in our life, we want to share our love with someone else. We want to share this life with someone else's life. But what we sometimes miss is the fact that we are actually sharing a life, not an hour a week with someone, but the entire life under the same roof. Even in your dreams, you'll have the person pop up and come there and be there. And so you have to understand you are sharing life in everything that means. It's an entire life. So a small mistake or overlooking something important in picking or choosing your life partner could have some catastrophic outcomes. So the institution of marriage is intriguing because it offers the opportunity of sharing your pleasures and another word that starts with P. Pains. That's right. Don't think of any other words. Just those two. Okay, pleasures and pains with someone you love and want to live with for the rest of your life. So, since a marital partner or husband or wife is someone you intend to spend the rest of your life with, it is then very essential to identify the right qualities in the person you want to marry. And I would like to invite you to open up Genesis chapter 24. And just to read verse 1 and 4. And just to look at one particular story. Some of you now that I said Genesis know exactly whom I'm talking about. Someone who was looking, or his father was looking for a life partner for him. Okay? Any of you, your parents are looking for a life partner for you? Yeah? So here is, they're biblical. Your parents are biblical. Your parents are very biblical. Genesis chapter 24, verse 1 to 4. Can someone kindly read for us those 4 verses? You can just let me know if you're ready. Okay, go ahead, please.
Now Abraham was old, well advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. So Abraham said to the oldest servant of his house, who ruled over all that he had, "Please put your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. But you shall go to my country and to my family, and take a wife for my son Isaac."
Excellent. So we have an introduction here of Abraham who's getting older. Isaac hasn't been married yet, did not find a partner yet. And Abraham calls for his servant who's taking care of his household and says, "I'm going to send you on a mission to go find a wife for my son Isaac." Obviously, we don't do exactly the same thing, but you'll find many similarities. And we can learn something out of the description that we hear, the descriptions we hear in this passage. So there are 7 essential ingredients that we can take out of this passage. 7 essential ingredients, attributes or issues worth considering in looking for a life partner. And these, and I'll say them now and then together, and then we'll pick one at a time and expand on them. First, before we get to naming them, from this passage, just chapter 1 to 4, do you see any particular criteria that jumps at you?
Yeah.
Alex?
He specifically said, do not pick from the Canaanites where I dwell.
Do not pick from the Canaanite where I dwell. How can we translate that in context of Mississauga?
The people of this house.
Do not pick from Mississauga. Is that...
No, it just means people outside of your people, which just means Christian church.
Okay,
church.
so one of the main ingredients that we must keep in mind is common faith. Common faith. So having a common faith, divine guidance would be the second one, but the first one is common faith. And he's telling him here, the God of heaven, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell, but you will go to my country and family and take a wife for my son Isaac. So here we can learn, or specifically take out of this, that he's saying someone who matches my son when it comes to spiritual beliefs. Okay, we're not necessarily, here you can say, oh, but they're also talking culture. Yes, of course, talking culture as well. Does this mean we shouldn't marry except an Egyptian? That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But wouldn't you agree that culture plays a role in our relationships? Right? It dictates our lifestyle. It tells us how to view things differently than other cultures. It puts values, sets the values in our lives. So here he's saying the first criteria is common faith. So look for someone who shares a common faith with you. What do you guys think about that? I want to hear your thoughts. Some may say, Abuna, this is important. Others say, but we're struggling with it. Another one says, well, how about a Christian who's not Orthodox? And so I want to hear from you. So here's the first criteria, common faith. Yes?
I think it makes things a lot easier if your partner is someone of common faith. You don't have to disagree about which church are you going to attend, or if you're going to baptize your kids or not. And it just makes for things to be a bit more smooth.
Very
less
good.
Arguments and less disagreements.
Less arguments, less disagreements. You don't have to argue about the church you're going to. Let me tell you. So if you are Coptic Orthodox from Mississauga, getting married to a Coptic Orthodox from Scarborough. Okay, since you said that. Okay. Even though you have a common faith, but then you see a struggle between the couples as to which Sunday Mass they are to attend and which church they should belong to. That's an extreme form, because it really should be, at the end of the day, one church, right? But let's see how even with a common faith but a different home church, we end up with sometimes these type of troubles. What else? What do you think about this ingredient in choosing your life partner? Does it come to mind? Is it important? Can you overlook it? Can you... So what's going on? Common faith. Yes?
I think in terms of if you're thinking of your long-term goals, which is getting to heaven, if that person shares that faith with you, are they going to facilitate that process for you? Are they going to help you on your way to get there? Or are they going to stand in your way?
Right. Good. So again, this idea of, do we share the same spiritual services, spiritual practices, beliefs, and so on, can either help you, or it becomes an area where you're struggling a little bit with your partner. How many of you know of someone who said, but I'm bringing this person to Christ? How many of you have heard of that? But I'm bringing this person to Christ.
Or they can pull you away from Christ.
Right? What do you think? I mean, as a concept, it's not bad. I mean, I've seen people bring their partners to Christ, and it worked. And it worked really well. But I want you to sit with those people and hear what they had to go through. Because it's not easy. What do you think? Your thoughts? Yes?
I think it's fair to be selfish and reverse the situation and ask that person brings you closer to Christ. So as much as I'd want to be with a spouse and bring them, I'm also selfish in the fact that I want someone to do the same amount of work, if not more work, to bring me to Christ.
Right, which I think ties well with what was said earlier. If your ultimate goal is the kingdom of God, you definitely want that for you as well as you want it for your spouse, not just for them. Now, I want to share with you, and Abuna here can correct me or tell me of his experience, but I have seen, it's recording, I have seen our own Coptic people, some come to Christ because of the partner that they actually start bringing to Christ. So they themselves are not engaged in their faith. But when they made that connection with someone who's from the outside of the church, they start bringing them, and in the process of catechism, they themselves have found their way back and connected to Christ. I've seen it a few times, but I'll tell you, it's hard work. It is hard work. So the point here is definitely you want someone with a common faith. You may find it easier with someone who has a background in Christianity versus someone who is of a completely different religion. And it's something not to be overlooked. And even when the person goes through the motion, and I'm saying genuine motion, I'm not saying they're faking their catechism, because we make sure we don't fake the catechism. We make sure the person is coming because they want to come to the church and to Christ. But I tell you, what is the easiest thing for a person to do after this whole baptism is done and the learning is done and achieved, and now they're getting into what is the easiest thing? The normal, natural thing that they have been doing for the last 20-some years. It's go back and recede and go back to what was, unless the person connected to the church is still keeping up the pace. So I go back to, it is hard work, but it's very important. It's foundational. If you don't hold, do you think you can be married to someone of different faith? And I'm not talking whether you can have the marriage in church or not. Of course, we know that. But I'm asking you the general question. Do you think you can be married to someone who does not have the same Christian faith you hold? Yes, no, and why? Some of your thoughts on this.
You're saying that one person will continue to be whatever religion they are, and you will continue to be Coptic Christian.
Yeah, I'm saying that yes, you would. They might go through the motion and things were okay, and then will you find? And they've gone through the baptism and all. Will you find some things that will later on show, because the conversion wasn't a complete conversion in that sense?
What do you mean by complete conversion?
So we were talking about life partners, and my question is, what do you think? Do you think it is important that the partner that you choose has a common faith foundation, same faith? And I'm saying there's hard work. My question is, what is your take or your thoughts on marrying someone of a different faith? Will it affect you somehow, and how?
I think it will affect you to a certain extent. Depends on you, I think, also.
Okay, so you're saying it depends on
the person,
the Christian partner.
Yeah, the person. Like let's say you're gonna marry someone with a different faith, and it depends on you and the other person whether you're gonna be compatible.
Faith-wise.
Yes, faith-wise. That's what I'm saying.
Good.
I think it's not only in relationship but in general companionship.
Mm-hmm.
That if you're in the kind of the wrong company, let's say, someone from a different faith might be having certain beliefs or be triggered by certain acts to act a different way than you as a Christian. For example, some would say like, okay, hate by hate and love by love, which is not obviously the Christian way. So it's not going to be only, if it's even like a normal companionship, it is this way. Now, if we can imagine it's going to be more intellectual, how would it look like? It's going to be more severe and would have more consequences.
Okay, yes, good. Any thoughts on this comment?
a verse came to my mind, and I was trying to find it, and I found it, but it says, in what, Deuteronomy? So an ox and a duck cannot plow together, right? And St. Paul talks about that. So even generally within the Coptic Church, within your own faith, you're supposed to be marrying somebody who is somewhere on a similar spiritual level. Otherwise, somebody will drag somebody down, and the other one will be.
So same spiritual direction.
Yeah, direction. Sorry.
Same spiritual direction.
Yeah.
Very important.
So if you marry somebody completely outside the faith, and maybe they have no direction, so it might be easy. Maybe they have an opposite direction. So that's going to be a lot more challenging and difficult for you to try to bring them in the direction where you're going. And
it's hard work.
It's
hard work, and sometimes depends on the person, may or may not work. So I'm going to say here, do not marry someone with the hope of renovating him or her to your taste. So that might happen as part of the process, but it cannot be your goal. Because let's be honest, it wasn't your goal to start with, right? You got interested in that person. It wasn't your goal to get them to know Christ, therefore. So to say, you know what, after marriage, or, this is a good thing to bring them to Christ, yes, then you know what? They need to do that and walk through this journey of knowing Christ separate of you. And when they actually accept Christ and want to be baptized because they believe, then that's done first before they can, or you can move forward with the marriage. But the point here is, we say there has to be chemistry. There has to be also a common faith. A common faith. And like I said, even within the same church, that's why I use the word direction. Because we could all be in the same church right here, but have different directions. Different directions. I'm Christian, but that's it. Like, there's nothing more to that. Sunday, I don't have to really come and pray Sunday. Or I have to come Sunday, and this is the way it should look like. But is there a connection? What do you mean? So there's so much to be said there, but I just want to put it as a title. Don't marry someone with the hope of renovating him or her to your taste. Worshiping God is the most important call of your life, as one said earlier about our goal to head to heaven. So your faith, why is faith so important? Why did I put this as number one? Why do you think faith is important? Is very important. What does it shape? Yes?
I think faith shapes morals in general, the ideas of what's right and wrong in relationship.
Yes. Forms your worldview the lens through which you understand money and deal with money. And how you handle dealing with someone who is of a lower socioeconomic status than you, or someone who's higher. It tells you how to handle and deal with your spouse when there is conflict. Faith speaks to everything. And I have an idea why, but it's so really perplexing when you see someone who says, yeah, we don't have the same faith, but I think we're going to be okay together. That reflects a misunderstanding, or maybe a lack of an experienced faith. Because faith will dictate. It's a lens that you put, and through which you will see everything else. As I mentioned, one of them being finances, and the other handling other people, the role of people, how to treat another, how to treat a spouse, and so on. Yes, Rami? Yes, one body, one spirit.
Translate.
What, do you want me to translate in French or what? Oh, this was completely off to the point you didn't know it was translation. Good, George. I like that. Okay. Your faith influences your career. It influences your education, other equally important choices you make in life. The way you organize your home, the way you raise your children is affected by your faith. The kind of discipline you use and the kinds of disciplines you will never use. Foundation and values you give to your partner and you give to life. All these must be faith-based. as much as to many of us this sounds trivial, yet I can tell you how many times I've encountered people who have not put the value they should put on faith. Common faith is extremely important. Common faith, as I explained, and you've also commented, speaks to everything in our life. For instance, a committed Christian will faithfully pay his or her tithe on all income made in their month. However, if he or she marries someone who is not a Christian, the person will be likely to offer some resistance to paying money this way. Say, yeah, well, I can pay to a charity here and there, but why do I have to tithe? Well, because that principle is a faith-based principle. Similarly, your faith determines the object of your devotion and whom you focus on for divine assistance. So it determines what you will do or not do in a time of crisis. One of the characteristics of strong families is that they spend time praying together and sharing their faith together. And if you choose a partner who's not used to praying, at least prayer is done in a completely different way because of their religion, then you're really not sharing a common sanctuary. So I want to say I'm not against marrying interracially, but that has its own issues. But if the people marry and keep each of their individual religions, even if there has been baptism, so do you see what I'm saying here? Even if on the outside it looks like they have the same faith, but you and I and them know very well that they'll still do things individually and separately. Then we really do not have a common faith. Do you get my point here? It's not the outside stuff. Oh, let me get him or her baptized, or we'll be of the same faith. Really? Like, are we that naive? We don't understand that faith is something at the core, something that we value the most and love the most and see the world through it. So it's not just the outside stuff. Any comments on this? So we don't need to rush into a relationship simply because the person attends my church. Here's the other piece. Oh, that person is good. They regularly come to church. Oh, so and so, he's a deacon. Why are you laughing? Tell me. Speak to me. There's something to be unpacked here. Tell me something, please. Unpack. Start us.
It's making fun of a stereotype, sort of.
So it is a stereotype, right?
Therefore, he must be a good guy. But in fact, it's.
Yeah, he's Abuna's right hand.
There's a problem with Abuna.
There's a problem with Abuna. Yeah, yes, there's a problem. But maybe he's Abuna's right hand for a purpose. Right? Like sometimes we put these stereotypes. So and so is a deacon, so and so comes to service. That's all good. But we know very well as Christians that the number one thing that we as Christians we fight against is hypocrisy. And we have to say that, not because we like hypocrisy, but it is what a believer will be tempted with. So yes, it's a nice thing to look at, but then we have to go in further and see the person. Does it really deaconship and service in church, does it really reflect in this person's character? Do we actually see it? And the answer is yes to maybe 80% of the people. Wonderful. Right? But there's the 20% or so that, no, I mean, they come in and out. We come in and out of the church and we say, but there's nothing that is actually changing in character. So, do not just rush into a relationship simply because the person attends church or your church. Take time to look for someone who genuinely loves the Lord. And this, I put this under common faith, but it is, if I were to create a criteria on its own, I would say genuinely loves and fears the Lord and shares your faith. This is important. So that person, if they love the Lord, they'll have the mind of the Lord. And if they have the mind of the Lord, You don't need to tell them, by the way, gambling is ruining our life. Or, what you're watching is really creating a wedge between the two of us. Why? Because he who fears the Lord and loves the Lord will answer to the Lord first before they have to answer to their spouse. Someone who loves and fears the Lord, even though he or she will make mistakes, but will rise again not just for their spouse's sake, but first for their relationship with God himself. And that's it. That is supreme. That's the first and foremost. Because, I could be in love with my spouse, willing to swim the deepest and largest ocean for her. But when I don't like her very much because she's doing stuff that is upsetting me, I don't want to do anything for her. But for the Lord, there's a different story. So here you're looking for someone, common faith, but someone who genuinely reflects love and fear of the Lord. And that is important. So number 2, in choosing your life partner, you have to seek God's guidance. Now you're going to say, that's old stuff, Abuna. You have no idea how often we have prayed about this. You have no idea what we've done about this. Let's read Genesis chapter 24, verses 12 to 14. Here is the servant arriving where his master sent him to look for a spouse for Isaac, or wife for Isaac, and look what he does here. Alex, can you read for us? Genesis 24, verses 12 to 14.
Then he said, O Lord, God of Master Abraham, please give me success this day and show kindness to my master Abraham. Behold, here I stand by the well of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please let down your pitcher that I may drink, that she says, drink, and I will give you your camels a drink. Let her be the one you have appointed for your servant Isaac, and by this I will know that you have known kindness to my master. And it happened, he had finished speaking.
That's it. That's the end of 14, right? That's the end of 14.
Yes,
so here, the servant is seeking God's guidance through prayer and telling him, God, give me the sign, give me this, show me that your will in this matter. I like very much what he said. Please give me success this day. Please give me success in this matter. And he talks to God. If this happens, Lord, and that happens, please open my eyes and send the person whom you want as a wife for my master Isaac. So without God's guidance, you may make a choice that looks good today, but which you may regret very much tomorrow. And again, I ask you, have you heard or known of someone who was extremely stubborn against all the odds and against all that was said to them about this person? Said, this doesn't look right. And everyone is saying this, but they kept, at it because they were in love. And then after the marriage, they regretted it. I know of a few. You know of none? Yes? So what goes on? What's happening? Well, we're blinded. We're blinded. When God says no, don't say yes. When he clearly says do not, don't say I will do. Pray about your partner or about that partner and seek God's guidance as you wait for the right person to come your way. And when a person comes your way, inquire from God whether he approves of that person as a partner for you or not. There is a step before this. I don't know if I should say it or not, but I will say it anyways because I can't stop now. You should actually pray to ask God if he wants marriage for you or not. And now you can stone me. Some cultures put emphasis on marriage to the point of salvation. Other cultures don't do the same. And they accept both lives as just two different ways of reaching holiness. I'm such a saying, right? I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
you never-
yes,
respects
yes.
both options of
Yes,
relationship.
yes, of course. And our cultures respects both options theoretically. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But there is no question that, yeah, it'd be good for people to get married. But St. Paul says what? I mean, I'd like everyone to be like me. And he was celibate. But if you would like to marry, okay, get married. So there are two ways of holiness. But did you hear what I said? Pray to ask God if His will for you is to get married. Because one of two things. If His will for you to get married, then that's great. Pursue it, look, do the rest of do everything. But if His will for you is clearly not to get married, there are benefits to that. Maybe you are going to get married, if you push it, to someone who will ruin your life. Or maybe you will be the one who ruins someone else's life. Right? So, again, this is just something on the side. You pray, God, the way of holiness, the way to heaven. My ultimate goal is you, Lord. And which way do you want me to go? Which way? And then be obedient to that prompting from God. And then when a partner comes along, when a connection comes along, which is a normal thing, then you pray about that. And you pray about this person. And you ask God, God, do you approve of so-and-so or not? I want you to tell me. I want you to speak to me. So having peace in your heart is often an indication of God's assurance. So you often hear of that, read of that, and we speak of that. When you feel, once this person's name is mentioned, you actually feel this peace inside of you. That very quickly, you can be distracted from that peace, but the first initial feeling is peaceful. Then your mind kicks in, and the words of people kick in, and that peace is gone. But initially, if you slow yourself down, you find that the first feeling was like, yes. And then, so quickly, because of the other noises, not God's voice, other noises, your peace is diminished somehow. Versus, as soon as you hear of this person or think of this relationship, you feel, not too well. But then you keep convincing yourself, no, but this is good. This is good. Then you try to force peace that is not there. Do you see the difference? So that would be the second thing, is seeking God's guidance. If you have agitation, confusion in your spirits, in the midst of your prayers, you're most likely struggling against the will of God. So those are the first two. Third criteria. So we said first, common faith. And we said someone who fears the Lord and loves the Lord. And we said common faith, not the outside appearance of faith, but the core of faith. The genuineness of God's love and God's fear. Secondly, we said seeking God's guidance. Listening to the feeling that God gives when you pray about this person. Asking God, what is the way, what would be best for your holiness? Thirdly, look for someone who can share with you what they have. Someone who can share with you what they have. Okay? So, in Genesis chapter 24, verse 14, I'll read it for you. The servant here prays and says, let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please let down your pitcher that I may drink. And she says, drink, and I will also give your camels a drink. Let her be the one you have appointed for your servant Isaac. So, marriage and relationships are about caring and sharing. Be very careful if you're talking to someone and all their interest is in what you have, not what they have that they want to share with you. This is very important. Okay, so a stingy person, right from the beginning, is bad news. If you meet someone who finds it extremely difficult to share anything they have with you, run away, because they're not ready to make you a part of their lives. Remember, and initially I said we are actually sharing lives, right? So if the partner you have found is always demanding from you without giving anything back, it is bad news. How could this look like? How would you know if someone is not sharing what they have? What would be a few examples of that? Yes, Rom.
Two things: hiding success,
Hiding.
hiding their own personal success, or letting your success down.
Putting you down, putting your success down because they want to, you know, eh, in comparison, feel a little bit more successful. A bit of insecurities there. What else? How would that look like? Someone who's not sharing what they have with you.
Surprises.
So, what do you mean by that? That's a interesting one.
Usually when you're thinking like, oh, okay, I know this person, I'm done. Like I know in and out, and suddenly, oh, I forgot to tell you this, or I forgot to tell you that, or.
Right. So they're not sharing what's happening.
Yeah. Or not
You're just finding
happening.
about them by surprise.
It's not only what's happening, it's also what some kind of important details that
Okay.
you would think they're important, or you made clear that it's important for you, and
Right.
you wouldn't share it at the beginning, that you were wondering what, I thought I'd tell you that would be important for me, why you didn't tell me about it.
Okay. Okay. And there could be a learning curve with this one. So initially, if that happens, it may not necessarily mean that the person is not willing to share, but if they continue on and on and on and on and on, and it shows in other areas of your relationship. But initially, if someone has been living to themselves for a very long time, not even with their own parents anymore and on their own, they may get into the mode of just being so private. That's that you want to check. That you want to assess. Don't just take it at face value. Say, oh, that's it.
But doesn't it show like a level of immaturity a little bit?
It depends. It could, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It could just be that the person is so used to keeping stuff to themselves, right? But they actually don't mind to share once that gear is oiled, right? Other thoughts? Alex?
Sometimes the person may be basically things have happened. Maybe they're getting a little bit annoyed here and there, but they don't really talk or communicate. And what happens is they just keep getting annoyed, and then what happens is it just comes out all at once. So without you knowing, so what happens is basically, because I've seen it happen in front of me. So what happens is at that point, like they're not communicating, they're not sharing with you, and they're not even really necessarily telling you about their day. Basically, just kind of you talk about whatever, basically just kind of just for the heck of it, and then that's it, really. So there's no sharing of your days, there's no communication, and then at some point, basically just goes out.
And sharing is a two-way affair that involves giving and receiving, whether it be giving and receiving of your news or giving and receiving of the gifts that God gives you, and so on. Any other forms where you say, oh, there's a red flag here? Yes, and then yes.
So since we're talking about sharing,
yes.
Sometimes it depends on how much they share.
Yes.
Like at the beginning, you get to know the person. Sometimes when they overshare, that can be a red flag as well.
Okay. What do you mean?
So like I don't know, they tell you almost everything. Like right, wait, it's good that they're genuine, their intentions are pure, they're kind of honest, if you will. But I don't know, I feel like it should come gradual because then they expect you to sort all the things that you have.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I think stinginess can take on several different forms. So they could be stingy emotionally, they could be stingy with money, they could be stingy on different aspects. So depending on how that person is sort of reacting to you, there's a way of developing or noticing whether, you're sharing your emotions, are they not sharing back any of their emotions. And at first it could be that they are defensive, perhaps, as you mentioned, they're just not comfortable opening up. But if it's something that continues to persist, then later on hard conversations could become difficult. For example, if they're stingy with money, well then if you're always paying for dinner or paying for coffee, then that's something that needs to be discussed or whatever the case is. So I think it's an aspect or a characteristic that can manifest itself in different ways.
Is it workable?
I think so.
When does it become a red flag?
They keep doing the same habits.
When they keep doing the same habits and what's happening?
They're not learning.
And they're not learning, and
It
gets worse. It gets worse. They don't care. They don't see how this is impacting you. or impacting the relationship, and it's actually impacting the relationship, right? So it's not working for the relationship. It's actually causing more conflict, and so on. Yes?
So how do you tell the difference between somebody who's stingy with money and just, okay, let me rephrase that. I guess in our culture, there is this, or in the Middle Eastern, traditional Middle Eastern culture, there is this notion that the man should pay for everything. Then how does the man tell if the woman is not stingy or not? I'm not saying I believe that. I'm just saying a hypothetical example.
It is hypothetical, yes. Is there such a thing as a stingy woman? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, there's cultural piece here where maybe in a certain culture, like the Middle Eastern culture, the man feels and learns and is socialized to actually pay. Sure, but then there are other areas like time, emotions, especially emotions, which again, we're assuming that the woman here has those emotions, then is she sharing them or not? And also sharing the time to listen. So someone was saying like opening up and talking, they're actually not sharing their time properly. So they expect you to hear everything, but then when you have something to say, they're not giving you the time. You see? So their stinginess here doesn't have to be money. Does not have to be money, if there is a cultural piece. But what if there is a cultural piece and he doesn't pay for everything? And you expect him to actually pick up the bill because mom told you, or the culture has said, no, he has to pay. That shows that he's generous. Do you see how the stories build? Yeah? So again, we enter into stereotyping. So not just one area, but like it was said, you have to look at it from different areas. Life being shared. Okay? Someone want yes, Nancy?
I was going to talk about the whole idea of stinginess and all this stuff because it is cultural. Like, I'm not saying that we expect men to pay for everything, but like as women, since we have our own independent self, if you will, we like to contribute once in a while. But guys take offense in that, right? So they say those comments like, "Oh, how am I supposed to be providing? How am I supposed to do that?" So when does it become like I know a little bit of Western tradition, culture, if you will, they do like, okay, one time I pay, you pay. Or like you got this tonight, let me get it next time. You know, so like,
Just compare bills after.
Problems, you know, because then he might go to his parents or his family or his father confession and say, oh, like I expected her to be, but she didn't. Like I think in the clear
Yeah, that brings me to my last point. But my last point I'm coming to at the end.
Yes, no, this is another thing I'm saying. It has to be communicated at the beginning. Like you're not gonna set expectations from day one.
Yes.
But if
So it brings me to my last point about setting expectations and being realistic in our expectations and having all these criteria for the person I want, which no one will ever meet and ever fill. And here God is telling you get married, and you're saying no, I'm not going to get married because of my criteria. We'll come to that. But let me move on. Question or comment?
It was about the sharing thing and how to tell if someone's stingy or not. I think it's look at it the other way. Are her expectations always like you pick me up, you drop me off, you pay for this, you buy me that, and vice versa? Is he always like sort of holding back, not wanting to contribute, and that's how you can tell whether or not the other person wants to share based on the expectations.
That's how you tell that there is something you need to talk about.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes. To find out what's going on. Yes, because there could be, like I was saying, there could be a cultural story behind this that is dictating the behavior. So we have to pay attention to that. Yes, thank you.
You have to know the kind of relationship with that person you're getting into the relationship to begin with before you get into it, right? So you can't, if you know this person is a traditional person, maybe they've just come from Egypt, maybe it's not so many years ago, all these things, whether you're the guy or the girl, you have to know that before getting into the relationship so you know what the expectations are. Because you're not gonna say, hey, let's go for a coffee or let's go for a lunch, and then you already know this person expects this, and then you don't do it. So you have to know from the beginning, and you should know that because you've been talking to this person in your grad meetings or whatever for God knows how long, and then you should know, right? So you're not gonna get into a relationship without knowing.
Or at least you should talk about
Talk about it at least, but I'm just saying you should
talk
know.
about. One of the, I think, potential pitfalls that we have in relationship is that our expectation is it has to be this way or that way right from the beginning, and we have to allow room for discussion and to open up, to explore further. We are very quick in making conclusions, and we form a judgment that actually becomes a stumbling block or an obstacle to our next steps in relationships. Be a little bit more open to explore. Okay? Keep these in mind, but explore them. Don't judge the partner or potential partner right off the bat. Don't we do that sometimes? Yeah? And it holds us back. So, who can tell me the 3 criteria so far? 1, common faith. Someone who genuinely loves and fears the Lord. 2,
Divine guidance.
absolutely. Guidance, divine guidance in prayer, and listen to how God speaks to you. And ask Him for what is the path that He wants for you. Thirdly,
Look for someone who can share with you.
so the sharing is very important, and someone who is not holding back from sharing aspects of their life and life with you. Number 4, marry somebody who is responsible. Now, that, I think, is a red flag. So if you find someone who is irresponsible, or if you are the person who is irresponsible, on your knees, repent. Right? On your knees, repent. Because that's a nightmare in marriage. If you end up with someone irresponsible or not responsible, especially, and I say especially, it actually works both ways, but a woman, if you're looking for a top 2 criteria, beside the faith that we spoke about and the guidance and all that, you want a man who is responsible. Why? What's going to happen if, ladies, you marry a guy who is not responsible? What would that actually look like?
Run away the wedding day.
What's that?
Running away the wedding day.
Running away the wedding, so they won't get married. That's good. That would be the most responsible and irresponsible person would ever do.
Could it be that you're going to baby him the whole time?
Yeah, you're going to mother him for the rest of his life, especially if he is the last child in that family. Then you're going to be mothering this person. And how will that look like? Specifically. What's that? Cleaning after him. Okay? It's going to double your chores. You're going to be expecting things, especially if you're a systematic woman and you like things done in a certain order, and that person is completely irresponsible with money, irresponsible with time, irresponsible with family, then you're in for a big surprise. Now, men, what if you were to marry a woman that is irresponsible? What's that going to look like?
Your kids will be raised in the church.
So the kids won't be raised in the church because there's heavy emphasis on mom being the person raising up the kids and dad just drinking his coffee somewhere. What would it look like to marry a woman that is irresponsible? How would that play out? So with the other way, yeah, someone is going to be nagging, and guess what? Like a wife does not want to be the one who's nagging. But imagine now you have to nag over everything. That's going to impact your relationship. You're going to feel like a mother. Like I said, again, it's a mother-child relationship, not wife-husband relationship. The other way around, how would it look like? Yes?
Well, I think it could lead to a situation where you're simply not building a home because you need some form of responsibility to be able to introduce structure, to be able to establish things together. So it's almost the opposite, really. He's just going to be carrying her through in whatever way he can.
Yes, and someone in that relationship is going to burn out and is going to be fed up. and it's going to form resentment, and the relationship is going to dissolve over time. Genesis chapter 24, verse 15. And it happened before he had finished speaking, that behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her pitcher on her shoulder. You wonder sometimes, why does the Bible speak these, specifics? She came out with a pitcher. No, with her pitcher on her shoulder. That tells you someone is putting what? The effort, and is a hard worker. You want your partner to be a hard worker. That's important. Responsibility is important. Anybody who is irresponsible is not good material for marriage. I'm using some very harsh words here. It's not good material. Primarily, and how we take up the tasks that are ours domestically or professionally. So you want them to be responsible in their work, so you don't end up having trouble because of work. You want them responsible in the family and in dealing with their children, dealing with yourself, dealing with your parents and their parents, and so on. If someone does not know how to take care of his parents or siblings, even when he or she is in a position to do so, he or she clearly shows some level of irresponsibility. So how do you know someone's level of responsibility? You check how they deal with their own family. How do they handle a call from a sister? How do they handle an interaction with a mother when you go over? Right? So these are just windows into how that person is in their own family. Because guess what? The way you are with your family will end up being the way you are with your spouse. Though you hated it, though you did not like the way mom and dad did this and that, you're most likely either to be exactly them, or in some cases, the opposite of them. So, similarly, people who do not know how to keep themselves well, dress, their bed, brush their hair, wash their clothes, or have their bath, are equally irresponsible. I'm going into the nitty-gritty here. But, someone has to take care of themselves if they're going to take care now of a family. And that's important. It's important. These are ways to see if you are responsible and if your partner is. So the husband, the head, means the husband must be able to make decisions. Sometimes difficult ones, and at a short notice. Maybe that's not your preference, but being the head of the family means you have to have strong direction, obviously led by God, but being decisive, not indecisive. How about role differentiation? So each partner has a certain role, and so on and so forth. What do you think about roles in marriage? Tell me what you think about that. And what your partner thinks about roles in marriage. Very important, because let's say you believe that everything should be equal. I will cook today, and she will cook tomorrow. And then we will do this. And the garbage, it's divided up, the paying the bills, the investment. If you think everything is equal, like everything has to be shared, but your partner actually believes in what we call traditional roles. The husband, this is what's expected, and no one says anything. You get into marriage, and it's as if it's going to unfold just nicely. Only to discover that no one is taking out the garbage. Only to discover that the bills are not getting paid. Only to discover that you're fighting over, how come you're not cooking today? Well, I always thought it's going to be shared. But we never talked about these things. So, traditional versus transitional versus egalitarian or equal roles. Tell me, what do you think about that? Should roles be this is a male or a husband's role, a wife's role, or should there be an equal exchange, or what? What do you think?
I think that your role should depend on what you're good at or what you enjoy doing. So I know the traditional
on here is the woman cooking, for example. Maybe that's because 90% of women enjoy cooking or they're good at it. So maybe that's her responsibility.
I think it's an implanted chip. I think someone a long time ago put that in. Okay, so you're saying it depends on what you're doing, if you're good at it, and what you enjoy.
Yeah. And that way, like, you're not carrying, you're not doing your responsibility and also your partner's responsibility. So you're kind of sharing.
Excellent.
Not everything is on.
Very good. What if your partner enjoys everything outside the house? Well, that's possible. Compromise? Live in and out? Shoveling the snow? Yeah. Shoveling the snow? Yeah, of course. Oh, you thought I was leaving the house completely? No. But then again, what if you stay in a condo? There's nothing there to shovel.
So, Rochelle, are you referring to complementary roles, or what is it that you're referring to? Because I think a couple years ago, we had a relationship series again, and they were talking about if there should be complementary. So, like, I know Egyptian men, they like to get under the sink and get dirty and do the plumbing and the housework and all that stuff, while the women can do the cleaning. It's not traditional.
Stop the tape. Stop the tape.
Stereotype, come on.
Well, ask the men here. Yeah, I am. Yes. I don't have a say. So again, there is the stereotyping of I think that men prefer this, women prefer that, but it's something for the couple to do what? To discover for themselves. I want to say there's no one way better than the other. As long as it's working for that couple, it's perfect. Right? It's working and it seems to be a good flow, that's fine. As we've seen, many families do very well with equal roles and changing roles. And we've seen, we've seen kind of the semi-model where there are some roles that are pretty much gender specific, but then there's a whole bunch of other roles that can be interchanged. And we've seen, this is called the transitional one. There's this one, there's that, and that. As long as it's working for you. The problem is if it's not working for you. If you're of the mentality of traditional, but your husband or your wife is actually expecting egalitarian, then you'll have conflict. That's okay. You can have conflict. Life is full of conflict. But how you work through them and whether you actually end up at a zone where you feel most comfortable, that becomes an issue. Hopefully you can see that prior to marriage. Talk about this prior to marriage. Okay? Very important criteria. You must marry someone you're attracted to. You never thought I'm going to put this in, huh? This is very important. Very important. I think it's important. Do you think it's okay if you marry someone you're not attracted to? Can attraction come later on? It's possible. Tell me more. From what you've heard. From what you've heard.
I think it's not that you have to be attracted to them right away, but you have to not be repulsed by them right away. And then as long as you're not repulsed, you could see the personality and all the other factors, and then that will give you a better picture of if you're actually attracted to them or not.
Yes. The interesting thing in Genesis chapter 24, verse 16, is the commentary in this passage says, "Now the young woman was very beautiful, to behold a virgin. No man had known her. And she went down to the well, filled her pitcher, and came up." So, who was she? In whose eyes was she beautiful?
In God's eyes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not told in Isaac's eyes yet. Later, yes, he sees her, he falls in love with her. He loves her. But it's just a general commentary here that she was very beautiful to behold. And here, attraction doesn't necessarily mean physical attraction only, but it could be an attraction to the person's character and personality. Right? But so many people go after the physical attraction only to discover a very miserable life after. So physical attraction is important, but it cannot be the only attraction. Because you could be married to the most handsome guy and married to the most beautiful woman, but then the life that you will have with that person could be so ugly. Agree? Someone had their hand up. I'll take someone who hasn't said anything. Okay. So we'll go 1, 2, 3.
Okay, going back into the stereotype.
Yes.
Stereotypical thing.
Are we moving from attraction?
No, still attraction.
Still attraction, okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna speak on behalf of a lot of women.
Yes.
I'm blunt that way. I don't know about Egyptian men, but traditionally most of them would look with their eyes and to see if the woman is beautiful.
Well, they can't look with their ears.
The voice is attractive.
I guess that is very good. So to them, physical attraction becomes important. Becomes very important. Right. Okay. No, I get your point. All jokes aside.
All jokes aside, as women, if you look at our parents, for example, I'm sure they were attracted to each other, but they were looking at it like what you said, like is he responsible, is he God-fearing, and all that stuff. And now I think it's because I don't know if there's more of a possibility. There's a lot of women, a lot of men, and you have to be the right person. You want to walk down the aisle with the most perfect, handsome husband or beautiful bride. Like I stole her. But what hurts me the most, and I'm gonna be stereotypical again, is like at the beginning of the dating stage and all the stuff, they're infatuated with each other because of physical attraction. And then after marriage, you sort of like there's that shift between that physical attraction because after like childbirth, child rearing, whatever, things happen and they're not really attracted anymore to their eyes.
Yeah. Good point.
I'm just gonna be
Good
honest.
comment.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I just wanted to make the point about like the difference in the types of attraction. So like they say that like beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and
Exactly.
I think it's because not everybody is looking at finding a partner that is physically beautiful on the outside, because that you also run the risk of it being more lust than you do an actual true connection between somebody. So I think everybody, when you talk about attraction, I think the misconception is a physical attraction as opposed to just attraction in some way. So.
Okay. Why are only the ladies talking?
You could be attracted to a person in terms of their voice.
Yes, true. Absolutely. I mean, and that's seeing them with your ears. That's true. That's absolutely true. Men, I want to hear from you because really this is an issue of guys. Rami.
Well, look or body is just a suit we put in every day. But if we look, theoretically, you're going to live with your partner a lifetime. You need to make sure that you guys can live together. You are attracted to the way the person think, the person communicate, the person act.
Yes. Have you seen that clip about this couple that comes after the wedding, and they go into their room, it's their wedding, and then she begins to take things off?
Yeah.
But I don't mean clothes. I mean like hair. What's that? Huh? Hair, yeah. She takes her hair. Have you seen this clip? I was told this story when I was very young by one of my great uncles, and he told me this as a joke. He said, a man, I don't think he ever thought it will come as a clip, but I guess the clip comes from somewhere old, where he told me this. This couple, they got married, and they went into their room at that night, and the man, gets prepared and all that, and the wife says, no, hold on one second, and then she takes off her eyelashes. There's no problem. Many people put eyelashes. And then the man gets up again. Just hold on. And then she takes off her lenses, and then her eyebrows, and then something put on her lips, and then her arm, and then her leg, and then she goes like this. So the idea here, and we would laugh at this as kids hearing the story because he always said the story. And the funny part is that I actually see this as a clip shared on social media, which is basically, yes, physical attraction is important, and I will tell you, you have to have some level of attraction to your partner, men, women. but it cannot stop at that. Or it cannot be, this is it. I'm overlooking everything else that I really don't like 100%, but because she's attractive, or because he looks handsome, and so on. But it's really more, unfortunately, it's really more the other way around. So there must be an attraction, not physically only, but there has to be an attraction to other beauties in this person. And like it was just said, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. What you consider to be beautiful or not beautiful could be different in the eyes of someone else. So by and large, one of the greatest attraction in a relationship is the character of a person. And to know someone's character, you've got to spend time with them. You can't just say, I love his or her character, when you know that person does not appeal to you physically either. Say, okay, well, I like their character, but I can't get over the lack of physical attraction. What should you do? So nice character, nice person, but to be honest with you, every time, I'm going to use the stereotype, every time I see her, I'm just not attracted. What should you do? Yes.
Is this something that can change? Like, you have to kind of think of it, like, have a conversation with yourself. Is this something that can change?
I've tried for a while.
No, because you'll be unfair to her. Like, with time, it's not going to get better, it'll get worse.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good point.
You can't force attraction. It's not their philosophy.
Yes. Even if yeah, you can't force attraction. If it's not there, tough.
I mean, sometimes even when both people are attractive, like one person might not be attracted to the other person. It has nothing to do with looks or anything. It's just maybe the attraction is not there. Maybe the chemistry is not there. Because of that. So sometimes it has nothing to do necessarily with
looks.
themselves.
Yeah.
It's just that there's no chemistry to get the attraction going, even if the looks are there.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with it. You want to waste each other's time, right?
Right. And I really like the point, you cannot force. You've tried, it's not working. You're doing no one a favor by pursuing this and later on always saying, what did I do? Why did I do this? Maybe it needs some repentance on my end as a person. But again, don't repent on the account of someone else, over time. It's hurtful for someone to know that you don't find them attractive. So that's very important. Yes, you said.
Rami said something interesting before about the whole the suit thing. Because
Yeah.
as you age,
Yeah.
your appearance changes, and you may look less attractive to your spouse.
Yes.
What do you say to that?
I say hopefully your endorphins have kicked in, which is the hormone for the long-term love. So hopefully by then you've really connected well. Yes, of course. I mean, don't forget that part of this big deal on attraction has to do with a certain age, right? A certain level of hormones and way of thinking, that with time, your ways of thinking also change, right? But you're marrying now, so you have to take that in consideration. I'm not saying it's the only criteria, but I'm saying if completely, and especially for women, if women, you're not, and your attraction to men, I don't know why I keep pointing there, but there seem to be more women here. Right? Especially a woman, she has to say, I really am attracted, or at least there is this attraction that started. Guys, they can move in and out of emotions here and there, and they can get really attracted because of something and not attracted because of something else. But a woman, when she begins to trust with her feelings, she really goes and really holds. That's why it is a very difficult thing to get a woman to lose her love. But if she loses her love, you're in deep water. Okay? So, again, there has to be some level of attraction. Let me move to the next criteria, because there are two, this one and next one. Know the family you are marrying into. Please, this must be a very important criteria for you. Because guess what? You are marrying that family, not just that person. No matter where you're going, if you take your spouse and you go to Hawaii and live there, you are marrying someone who is 50% her mom, 50% her father, and 50% his mom, 50%. You're marrying the family. So that's very important. And guess what? Not everyone gets the luxury of going to live in Hawaii. So you will be in closer proximity to the in-laws. And that's important. And thank God for social media nowadays and Skype and all these wonderful things that just connect the globe. So you are marrying into the family. So know the family. Genesis 24, verses 22 to 23. And said, "Whose daughter are you?" he asked. "Tell me, please, is there room in your father's house for us to lodge?" So she said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, Milcah's son, whom she bore to Nahor." Whose daughter are you? Now, traditionally, we say, "Oh, this is the old thinking. This is the old thinking. Ask about her parents. Ask about his parents. Ask about their background." And we stereotype this under old thinking, only to discover that it is still important, to a big part, still important to know the family. Why? Why do I say it's important to know the family? Why am I saying you're marrying the family? Yes?
Because you know the basis of the person and how they were raised.
Yes.
Like how they were brought up to be. Like, are
Yeah.
they brought up to be in a church? Have they been constantly going to church?
Right. So you're looking into the cradle that formed, in which that person formed. It is important. Are we to judge the person because of their family? I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is there is something there to look into. Because again, the parents are going to be involved one way or the other. Marriage is not just the union of two people, but also the union of two families and beyond. Check out the family you're marrying into. Ask relevant questions. What would be some relevant questions you could ask?
Parents divorced.
Are your parents divorced? Okay, sure. That could be one.
How often you go to church?
How often do they go to church? Okay. So we're gonna someone just take notes. We want a checklist, huh? Because this is what you're going in with. What else? Yes.
I think it's not so much a question to see how they behave.
Yeah. So when you actually go and visit, how do they behave? How does potential father-in-law talks to his wife? How does wife respond when she gets upset? Okay. You're analyzing. You're not building everything on this, but at least you're exploring. You're having a look. How does mom, dad call your spouse? Do they have names for them? Do they have nicknames for them? How is respect? What's power? What's the power going on? You know that power is a thing in families. How is power utilized in that family? When mom wants to get her way, how does she do that? When dad wants to get his way or wants to do something, how is that done? So we look into the nuclear family, our families back, where we grew up. Certain characteristics are dominant in certain families because they have grown in certain cultures and have adapted to certain lifestyles. So we are the product of our parents and the products of our environment. We cannot overlook that. The question is now, can we adapt to a newer lifestyle together? And here is a question on flexibility. Is your partner flexible or are they rigid? Flexibility is very important. Forging or coming up with a new life together versus, no, it's going to always be my life and you're just joining it. That flexibility is very important. It works both ways. Some families are so controlled by one person in the family, a mother who dominates all her children, or a father who is domineering or arrogant. Another family may be reserved and poor, and no matter how much you love a person, love could turn into hatred over the years of marriage. If you've married into somebody, you knew I cannot live with her mom. There's no way. And you say things like, you'll never be like your dad, right? You'll never be like your mom, right? And the answer is always what? Of But of course, what? That's the thing. It is, of course, I will. Right? That's the reality. You become your parents in many ways. In many ways. I said, like, someone could be the opposite, but in many ways, we just manifest our families, and our spouses do the same. And also because there is connection with the in-laws. So some people, although adults, are still controlled by their parents. So if you marry someone, who do you want to pick? Who do you want me to pick on here now? The husband or the wife? Husband.
The wife.
The wife. Joe. The wife it is. So the wife, she is so meshed with her mom. She tells her everything. She speaks about everything. So what's the big deal if you get married to someone like that? Well, again, your life secrets and privacy, it's all going to be, with someone else other than your spouse. Or a husband who is, mommy's son, and cannot take any big decisions that have to do with his family unless he calls mom and says, so what do you think about that? And she says, yeah, do it. And she's probably flipping coins, but anyways, do it, right? So some people are adults but are still controlled by their family. So you want to explore, know the family you are marrying into. And the last point I want to say here is related to this one. You have to find out if the family is going to accept you. That's important. So I'm talking generally speaking, right? 99% of the time. There are the extremes where the families are completely off the grid. They're completely wrong. Everyone is telling you, and under guidance, saying, yes, that's okay. You know what? They're wrong. They're not right. But I'm talking about the 99% of the times. Won't you want to be accepted by your spouse's family? 100%. So you want to make sure that actually happens. Is there room for you in this family? If you find out that the family you're going to marry into is not ready for you, don't stubbornly rush into it. It's not a competition with the parents. Who's going to win over this poor guy? Right? It's not. Talk to family members, talk to priests, hold meetings if need be, to explain yourself as clearly as possible if there was a misunderstanding. And sometimes the parents' fear may be unfounded, but other times they may be genuine concerns that you need to look into. You should know that history has the potential of repeating itself, right? So this is important. Do your very best to ensure that you're accepted in your spouse's family or the family you're marrying into. Do your homework well. And because marriage is a lifelong commitment, choosing a life partner is therefore an important issue. And for this, it requires wisdom, it requires a prayerful consideration. And so I put before you today 7 criteria that are very important that you should keep in mind. Let's go through these 7 very quickly again. Number 1, common faith, genuine love and fear of the Lord. 2, divine guidance. Definitely seeking to hear God's voice, speaking to you in your inmost chamber, right here in your heart, and through other people as well. Thirdly, sharing. So it's very important that the person is not stingy with their feelings, their time, their resources, and gives, not just takes. 4, responsible person. That's very important. And I said, it is very important, ladies, that when you look for a criteria in a man, that he be kind and responsible. This is very important. Number 5. What's that? Attraction. There has to be a level of attraction, physical as well as an attraction to character. Something that goes beyond what you see to actually what you're hearing and what you're dealing with. Number 6. Know the family. You are marrying into the family. And number 7, make sure that you are accepted by that family. There's always other things here and there we can speak about, But I think if you were to look at those 7 criteria, you'll find that they speak about good communication, which you can learn. You'll find that they speak about a foundation on Christ. You'll find that they speak about a trust and emotional trust, where you can actually be trusting that person and they can trust you, because that's important. They'll speak about keeping this, or fostering a love connection that grows. So just these are 7 criteria or main criteria that you can fit in a few things here and there as well. But those would be the top ones that I'd like to leave with you to think and reflect on them. Now, this brings me to expectations. In order to form relationships, we have to check our expectations. Because when we begin this whole process, some may have a list of things that they want. And this list is not realistic. This list is actually an obstacle. So when we come down to 7 criteria that are critical and important, and then we're open to exploring. Some of the toughest things, and I spoke about this in another group before, is people don't know how to approach one another because there's a fear of rejection. There's a fear. If I were to talk to this guy tonight, should I be talking or should he be coming to talk to me? There's all these expectations and all these cultural things of who should take the first step and who should say what, and should I go and say hi again, should I call, should I go out with this person, have coffee, and all these stories that I think holds us really down and holds us back from maturely connecting with one another, giving ourselves a good chance of knowing a person, with pushing away as much of the stories and the noise as much as you can, and be kind. I want to really say about this, be kind, because, sitting here, people are not sure. Should it be okay for me to talk to this person? That person talked to me last week, but didn't talk to me this week. What should I do? I'm kind of stuck. I don't know what to do. Can we just, if I may say, our expectations and the way we handle one another should really be injected with a lot of kindness and a lot of grace. A lot of grace. Okay? So check your expectations. Check your expectations. Some of these expectations may not be realistic. And some of them, you need to revisit. And I hope that maybe those 7 criteria that we talked about today can help you think about that again. And again, before you connect to be husband and wife, you are brothers and sisters in Christ. So that's why I'm saying be gracious to one another and be kind to one another and create that environment that is conducive of friendship, not necessarily other things, just friendship that could eventually lead to something else. And try and be very aware of the stories and noise. I'll tell you honestly, and I speak this openly, I love Edge, and I love the meeting in Edge and the group here, but yet you probably know that there are things that hold people from coming sometimes to Edge. This is the stuff I'm talking about, where we have to be a little bit easier on one another, a little bit, kinder, and it's okay to take some risks, and it's okay to minimize, the level of risks that sometimes we feel by just being genuinely kind with one another and open to explore, not afraid because of the noise we hear and the noise we have. Is that clear? You understand what I'm trying to tell you? Someone can put it in better words? No? Okay.
Well said.
Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.